Esta plena que te canto, la llevo dentro en mis venas. Yo la canto desde chico, y orgulloso de...
And without any further delay, I'd like to introduce one, like I said, one of my mentors here in New York in Latino Studies, la profesora Ramona Hernández.
Buenos días, como viejita al fin, ¿no? Buenos días. It is a great honor this morning to introduce the keynote speaker of the fourth Siglo XXI Conference, President Daisy Coco de Filippis of Connecticut's Naguatl Valley Community College. Dr. de Filippis' resume speaks loud and clear of her many accomplishments. As you know, she has had an impressive career as an accomplished high-ranking administrator in higher education that includes being chair of the Department of Modern Language at CUNY's York College, provost and senior VP for academic affairs at CUNY Hostos Community College, and now, of course, president of Naguatl Valley Community College in Connecticut. Since assuming the presidency of Naguatl, Dr. de Filippis has promoted a shared vision of community, student-centeredness, collaboration, and civic engagement. Under her leadership, student retention has steadily risen, enrollment has increased, graduation awards has grown 14%, and the college Hispanic community population has more than doubled. Most recently, Dr. de Filippis, with the cooperation of local leaders, students, and college officials, secure evening transportation service for the city of Waterbury, and her college competed for and received funding to establish a state-of-the-art manufacturing center on campus to meet the needs of the state or the workforce. Dr. de Filippis is also a distinguished author with numerous publications under her belt. She is perhaps the person of Dominican ancestry in the United States who has received the highest number of recognitions and awards for her contributions, both to academia as well as the community. If one were to ask me to mention just two of Dr. de Filippis' most meaningful and lasting contributions to public life, I would probably choose first her scholarly contributions to both Dominican and Latino studies. Her academic work gave great credence and validity to the literature that was being written in Spanish by Dominicans in the US, when scholars were fixated on the writings produced in the Dominican Republic and paid no attention to Dominicans here. Through her work, the narrative created by Dominicans as a community and the space where that community was evolving was giving a scholarly acknowledgement for the first time. And second, from my perspective, I will speak about her work with Dominican and Latina women writers. Daisy has created Las Tertulias, a space for young and seasoned women writers to come together, to read each other's work, share, learn from each other, but most of all, to lean on one another when they have writer's block or when their life in general becomes heavy and overwhelming. There are many Dominican women writers who first published their writing in Dr. de Filippis' Tertulias, and there are many who have moved on and become published authors. But what I think is even more important is the fact that the Tertulias remain as established space where many other women writers can share, dream, and create. That nurturing energy and ability to create a nourishing environment also expresses itself in the garden, which Dr. de Filippis delights in showing all visitors who come to her college with visible pride. The Siglo XXI Conference is about bringing together Latinas and Latinos from all walks of life, scholarly and not so scholarly, people who have in common a concern with and an approach to Latino issues. Daisy Coco de Filippis is a true example of that created togetherness, of that confidence force that we together are. Muchas gracias. Presidenta.
I stand between you and lunch. I'm sorry. I'm beginning a little late, but I did write a few things that I like to read. And I did write them because I did not want to leave anything out. Some of the things that I'm going to say are very optimistic, and some are not quite as optimistic. And I'll begin with a quote from Albert Einstein. "I never teach my pupils. I only attempt to provide the conditions in which they can learn." I appreciate your invitation to share some of my personal reflections on Latinos and higher education. Gracias, Dr. Hernandez, the director of the CUNY Dominican Studies Institute, and Dr. Cardenas, the executive director of the Inter-University Program for Latino Research, the University of Notre Dame, for the joy of this morning. I'm very grateful to John Jay College for hosting. Lisandro Perez, who I just met, good to see you. And I have to tell you, nothing gave me greater joy than to walk the hallways with so many students. What incredible vitality. What a beautiful sight that was. It actually, it just tells me why there's a CUNY kid in me anywhere I go. First of all, I begin by recognizing an institution that shaped and guided my life, the City University of New York. I am a proud alumna of Queens College and the Graduate School and University Center. I learned to be a professor with the support of my colleagues and my students at your college, where my first 23 years in higher education were happily and purposefully spent. Hostos Community College, where I served as provost and senior vice president for academic affairs for almost 7 years, taught me to love community colleges and fully underscore for me the transformative power that community colleges have when teaching is conducted with a flexible mind and an open heart. The CUNY Dominican Studies Institute at the City College is a wonderful place. I have collaborated closely with colleagues at the Institute for many years and feel a tremendous pride for the work being done there. I am truly at home in CUNY, with colleagues who are familiar in all of its beautiful colleges. CUNY is a vibrant, transformative, and generous institution. Many of us immigrants eager to learn and to grow over so many decades have found in CUNY a generous home. Gracias de todo corazón. The teachings of CUNY have served me well in my present position as president of my beloved Nagato Valley Community College in Waterbury, Connecticut, where since my assumption of the presidency in the summer of 2008, I have strived to create the conditions under which our students can learn. You need to stop and visit. It is a beautiful place. We have created 8 different gardens, beautiful gardens, and the place is vibrant with color. It was beige when I got there. It no longer is. It's just beautiful to be there. What were those conditions provided by CUNY when I attended in the early 1970s that were able to turn a reluctant young immigrant and young mother into a college president whose work is appreciated in other communities? 1, I was able to attend Queens College because I could afford to do so. There was no tuition then. 2, I was able to attend Queens College because there were rich course offerings in the evenings and multiple summer programs offerings and 3 different calendars to work with. They were as access at its best. 3, I was able to select courses from very rich liberal arts offerings that allowed me to study from Western civilization and history of art to Black studies and women's studies. There were language requirements that engaged my curiosity and study of not only Spanish, English, or Italian, languages I already knew well, but also French, Portuguese, and Latin. Evening courses offerings supported my choice of a double major in Spanish and English literatures. 4, I had professors who looked after me and who were inclusive in their teachings. I think with tremendous gratitude about Professor Rafael Rodriguez, Rafi, que en paz descanse, who went out of his way to make sure that I read the works of the Dominican poet laureate Pedro Mir, and about Professor Betty Whiteman, who encouraged my incursion in women's studies and Native American studies. It was the golden age of CUNY, and a period of tremendous intellectual growth for me. Undergraduate education was as fine as it can be on any college campus in the United States. I benefited greatly from open admissions and a rich and supportive liberal studies program that was inclusive and inviting and that recognized the importance of having students see themselves in the curriculum. The importance of a strong liberal arts education cannot ever be overstated, nor can it be accurately measured by metrics, however thoughtful the design. At its best, it is life-transforming, and it lasts through the multiple career changes contemporary life expects. Reflecting on the importance of a liberally educated mind, the distinguished 19th century Puerto Rican educator, philosopher, and fiction writer, Eugenio María de Hostos, say, "No basta enseñar conocimientos, hay que enseñar a adquirirlos. No basta dar ciencia hecha, es necesario enseñar a formarla. No basta sujetarse a la enseñanza en un método, es necesario enseñar a manejarlo. Es, en una palabra, hay necesidad de enseñar a razonar." Teach our people to reason. Teach our young people to be long life learners. Create a space for education to have meaning for them, to enter the imagination as a very real possibility for their lives. I often reflect also on the importance of home. For me, these principles manifested themselves in the presence of a grandmother who taught me to love books and to believe in myself. Consequently, I insist when I speak with Latino groups about the importance of creating at home conditions in which they can have their children learn, to allow their imagination to impose no limits on the possibilities education can bring, for mothers and fathers to help their sons and daughters understand that they can be free to imagine a future that is meaningful to them, even if it means that they follow a career path not normally expected, for instance, for girls in our culture, from mechanics to rocket scientists, or for the boys, from allied health to the arts, or for both, from literature to top college administration. It was also our Venerable Hostos who insisted in his belief that young girls should be educated in the sciences, yes, for the sake of their families and nations, but for the most part, for their own sakes, so that they could become complete human beings. We Latinos need to be aware of the need to create or to guide the creation in our homes, in the schools our students attend, and in the curriculum that is taught, the conditions in which they can learn. These conditions need to be created now. This burning impatience I feel is real if we are closer to sit at the table, not in a state of crisis. I'm tired of being in a state of crisis, but having acquired the tools to thrive under changing conditions and in a knowledge economy. This requires having an educated mass. Nothing moves a community out of crisis like education. I believe that it is probably the only way to do so. I speak before you this morning to say that the gains of my generation are in jeopardy today, when more than ever high school completion and a college education are required for the health of our community and for the future of our children. Yet free public higher education is no longer a possibility. States are supporting significantly less the cost of education. Cultural wars in many states are beginning to make a dent in the curricular offerings in public institutions. Our young people are having difficulties with their own sense of self-worth and in finding relevance in what we teach in our classrooms. Getting young Latinos on the path to a college education, college completion, and career needs to be the top priority in the Latino agenda for the 21st century. From where we stand today, Latinos and higher education in the United States today present a picture of significant gains, but multiple challenges. According to the Chronicle of Higher Education, Diversity in Academe Supplement of September 30, 2011, Hispanics earn 5.8% of the total number of doctorates. I wanted to get numbers because I realized this was a social science group, so I'm going to be throwing a few numbers here. I'm from the humanities. I would have done this all with poetry, trust me. Okay. So of the total number of doctorates awarded in 2009, or 5.8% of 32,231 doctorates. On the higher side of percentages of degrees earned were education, 6.9, social sciences, 7.1, and on the lower side, physical sciences, 4.2. According to the same report, Black and Hispanic doctoral recipients were more likely to carry large debts in 2009, on average 29,471 for Hispanics, with 14.7% exceeding 70,000 and 32.6% carrying no debt at all. States like California and Texas are home to many colleges with large numbers of Hispanic students, yet the percentage of Hispanic faculty members lingers around 12%. About $30,000 in debt on average for a doctorate is a heavy burden to carry. I got my doctorate at CUNY. They pay me. I was a research fellow, and I had no debt. Prospects for the course of undergraduate education are not much better. According to a recent article in the winter 2012, just hot off the press, issue of the Presidency, the Journal of the American Council on Education, based, and I quote, based on the trends since 1980, average state fiscal support for higher education will reach 0 by 2050. Although it could happen much sooner in some states and later in others. Additionally, if we consider the time to completion for many of our students who leave high school without a diploma, or with a diploma without the preparation to be college ready, the prospects of a comfortable future appear difficult at best. In his insightful publication, and I was hoping maybe he would be here, if he's here, that I could meet this young man, The Latinization of United States Schools, Successful Teaching and Learning in Shifting Cultural Contexts, University of Connecticut professor Jason Irizarry points out that, and I quote Professor Irizarry, dramatic population growth among Latinos in the United States has not been accompanied by similar sizable gains in the academic achievement of this group. Estimates suggest that approximately half of Latino students fail to complete high school and too few enroll in and complete college. If current trends continue, 5.5 million of the 11 million Latinos currently enrolled in U.S. high schools will not earn a high school diploma and will effectively be cut off from any chance of achieving the American dream. Of the half of Latinos who are able to successfully complete high school, only 2.8 million will attend college, with most of these students attending community colleges, not four-year institutions. Of those who attend college, only 770,000 of the 11 million, or less than 7%, will be awarded bachelor's degrees, and fewer than 250,000 will earn master's degrees. End of that quote. I'll quote another song, Better Must Come, as the song goes. But when and how? I venture to say that better needs to begin earlier in a person's life, that a clear path to high school completion and college degree attainment needs to be attended to with great care. If not, we will continue to be only 5% of doctorates when we should be at least 20%, 12% of the faculty when we should be more than 20%. In a paper presented to the National Association of Independent Colleges just at the end of January, Diane Ravitch, a professor of education at New York University, summarizes the present state of some national efforts designed to improve public education. She reflects on the lessons learned from the Bush years as governor of Texas and as president of the United States. I want to tell you, I still remember standing at a city college for a meeting to say, no child left behind has not left anybody behind because the entire family has been left behind. All right? This is what she says. First, there was no Texas miracle. On the federal tests called the National Assessment of Educational Progress, Texas is in the middle of the pack, nowhere near the top. Its high school graduation rate is below the national average. Second, no child left behind left many children behind. Indeed, the students who were left behind in 2002 are still left behind in 2012. The law identified the achievement gaps, but never provided the tools to close them. All right? So we're looking at a lot of regulations and a lot of testing of these poor kids. You sap the life under the enthusiasm, and then you test them, and then you cut the budget. I'm not Pollyanna. I'm not a Latina Pollyanna this morning. I'm sorry. Third, No Child Left Behind has changed the language of education. We no longer talk about the needs of children, the conditions of their lives, the external factors that affect their learning, or the resources needed to help teachers and students. Instead, policymakers are focused solely on test scores as measures of productivity and punishment. Professor Ravitch is equally discouraging in her assessment of current activities designed to support the Race to the Top initiative. She observes, the mindset that has unleashed so much harm in our K-12 school is now moving inexorably towards higher education. Just a few days ago, President Obama says he wants a race to the top for higher education. Race to the top has been disastrous for our public schools and teachers, but he now wants to share the pain of government-regulated accountability. I quote Professor Ravitch because I share with her a fundamental concern about policies and mandates that are not funded. Where I disagree with her, and I strongly disagree with her, is in the fact that I believe very fundamentally that federal and state governments need to stay involved in education and need to fund higher education and education in a more meaningful and equitable manner. We owe it to the poor, to those of us who are not college professors, to those who are struggling to achieve the American dream. Whether we agree with Professor Ravitch's assessment of past and current efforts, however, it is clear, right now it is clear, that state and federal governments are taking stock of the current state of decline of public education in general. As real investments are planned, it is crucial that Latino researchers and Latino organizations have a voice at the decision table. This is an area of advocacy that needs to be fought for, and organizations need to coalesce to advocate for strategies that support teaching and learning for our young people. We have even more reason to be concerned for Latino families because of the relative youth of the population. While the median age in the United States is 37, for Latinos is 27. In an interview for the Chronicle in Higher Education Supplements on Diversity in Higher Education, Dr. William Harvey, the Dean of the School of Education at North Carolina A&T University, commented, in a society that is becoming increasingly one of people of color, how can we endorse courses that scrub free the contributions of people of color? End of quote. As we consider the education of our future Latino students in Arizona, for instance, there are difficult challenges ahead because, as Roberto Cintley Rodriguez reports with outrage, quote, first, the Tucson School District came for the Mexican American Studies program. Now it's come for its books. End of quote. Can it be possible that the clock will be turned back in our time, under our watch? More needs to be done to support and to stop this terrible situation. Some significant advocacy is taking place in that state, but they should not be alone. If this organization has not done so, and I don't know the particulars, so you may have, it needs to weigh in and to protest this abuse. Resolutions, writing needs to come from everywhere, from the east, from the west, from the south, from the center, from wherever. Further, and I'm going to read some stuff here that actually makes me sick, okay? Consider our abuses, other abuses as well. As reported, front page of the New York Times last week, February 17th and 18th. These are some of the things that are going on in public schools. The Los Angeles Unified School District, within days, multiple allegations of abuse ranging from, for instance, photographs on the internet of teachers covering eyes and mouth of children and allowing roaches to crawl over them, to sexual abuse and lewd behavior by coaches, staff, and teachers. And in the February 18th, New York Times reports on the New York Public Schools' failure to keep track of teachers' inappropriate behavior towards students. The chancellor has now vowed to fire those who engaged in sexual misconduct in the last 10 years. This is not pretty. If you consider the percentage of Latino students in both of these big cities in public school systems, the need to monitor and to get involved is very clear. Having barely touched the surface of the challenges before us in creating the pipeline for Latino youth and college attainment, it is hopeful to note the dramatic increase of 18 to 24-year-old college enrollment for academic year 2009-2010 for Latinos. According to a report by Richard Fried of the Pew organization, Hispanic college enrollment spikes, narrowing gaps with other groups. Hispanic enrollment in 2009-2010 of 349,000 students brought the total of Hispanics enrolled in 2- and 4-year institutions to 1.8 million and represented 15% of the total enrollment for that age group. We have a lot of people in. Latino students then are entering our doors in large numbers. The challenge now is to continue that growth in enrollment and translate it into retention to graduation. There are multiple projects in place working with discrete numbers. This is the thing. I could tell you of multiple efforts at my school. Multiple efforts, you just heard the Vice Chancellor at CUNY. Multiple efforts everywhere. They are not large, they are not scaled up enough to actually make an impact that's gonna be truly meaningful. Professor Irizarry, for example, I come from a generation, and many of you are much younger, but I'll say it. The personal is the political. And Professor Irizarry, what he did as a young professor at the University of Connecticut was to actually volunteer, to go teach in the high school, to work with Latino kids. The stories, if you read this book, you just sit and cry. When you hear what these students stand with a professor who has a doctorate, who's a Latino, Puerto Rican mother and father from New York, gone to Connecticut. And they say, Mister, you don't understand. We can't do this. Don't you know that Latino students are stupid? So the personal, the political, if each person here has one discrete project, that's the personal, where you actually get out to breathe and stick your nose out and say, okay, so it's not all about tenure. It's not all about promotion or the next grant to write the next book. Let me try to do one thing this year to help one class in one of the schools in the institutions we serve. He's a great example. I recommend his book, okay? And I don't get any of the revenues for this. But there are multiple. The College Now project here at CUNY, there are multiple all over Connecticut. I created with 5 grants, not any money from any state, with 5 grants, a Bridge to College program where I am, where we're bringing kids in from the middle school. There are multiple efforts, but they have to be scaled up. You have male retention initiatives in multiple states. You have I want to mention in Texas, for example, I read this wonderful program that's called the College Bound Project. That's South Texas College, where they actually teach the students and their families, that the kids, and they get them t-shirts, and they have college days beginning with the 3 and 4-year-olds in the preschool. We got to do something. We got to do something. We as Latino educators must come together, bring our organizations and leaders to a summit. Somebody better create a summit that brings more than people for New York. And these are just a few, that will help bring attention to the need to take these best practices, whatever those may be. And my youngest son, who's a professor, said, Mom, you should give more examples. I said, no, it isn't that there's one example. They're huge. There are multiple examples. The question is, what are we going to embrace as a Latino higher education community, and what are we going to push forward, and where are we going to sit? Those of you who are sitting in some of these political high places, okay? It is also essential that we do protest schools of scandal. Parental participation, parental inclusion, and parental close monitoring are more than ever a necessity. And if we need to educate our parents so that they intervene in what's happening in the schools, we need to do that. And that could be a project for some wonderful young person here. Finally, turning back the clock on ethnic studies is not and should not be permitted. We need to go beyond Arizona and consider how we can bring our common voices to create a Latino advocacy national agenda. The need for a better articulated and more profoundly pan-Latino engagement is articulated wisely again by Eugenio Maria de Hostos, who continues to instruct us about the power of community in the creation of conditions in which our children can learn. And I quote Don Eugenio: "Una idea fructífera no puede dar frutos en la soledad de un pensamiento, por innata que aparezca en cuanto al soñador la enuncia. Necesita arraigar en varios, en muchos, en todos o casi todos los cerebros de un pueblo, de una raza, de una porción de la humanidad, para desarrollarse y fructificar y hacer el género de bien y la cantidad de bien que les sea esencial." Roughly translated poorly by me, an idea cannot bear fruit in the loneliness of a thought, as essential as it may appear as soon as the dreamer articulates it. It needs to take root in some, in many, in all or almost all of the brains of a people, of a race, of a segment of humanity, in order to develop and to bear fruit and produce the well-being and the amount of well-being that is needed. The time to act is now. And because Dominican independence is coming up, I've taken the liberty to just sort of use some of our language. Adelante, Latinos valientes, alcemos nuestras voces y nuestros brazos y abramos nuestros corazones y mentes fuertes. Gracias.
In the spirit of what Hostos was saying, because what he was pointing towards was the necessity for social action. And I'd like to solidarize with your comments about it's important for us to make, especially Latino and African American parents, aware of the abuses and how to fight back as to what's being done to their kids, especially in the K-12 system. But I do want to point out, as an educator of K-12 educators, that more than sexual type abuse happening to our kids is educational abuse with this teach to the test. We come from South Texas where they invented this, and it's really essential across the country that we start doing grassroots organizing, especially among working class Latino parents, to make them aware that this is not the schools they sacrifice to come up here to put their kids in need to be fixed, not in the way the billionaires are fixing them, but to empower our kids intellectually.
All right, I just wanted to say that, oh, it's not on. I think I'm loud enough. I thought it's enough. Okay. I have been saying for years to parents, to groups of parents, number one, I'm talking now about at the academic side. Go to the schools. Find out what's going on in the 8th grade. If your kid is not taking Algebra 1 in 8th or 9th grade, I just finished reading a book that one of the Board of Regents is not published yet, that is called Man Against the Machine. And the kinds of careers of the future are going to require a mind that is open in the humanities, in a sense, sort of like the Steve Jobs, right? Somebody who can see broadly, but who also understands numbers and machines and the like. So I said, if they don't have algebra by the 8th or the 9th grade, these kids, and there was a point I want to tell you, not too long ago, maybe 20 years ago, they were in New York, some of the New York City schools, they had taken and they had given the kids math courses that had to use a cash register. So you know what they thought about where those kids were going to be doing. And so they have to have algebra, and they have to have it early. They have to have a second language, and they have to have it early. Those two things. And you go to the schools and you see what's going on, and you also, one of the biggest carriers, all of these AP classes, which our students, half of our students, most of our students, they're not even told that there's that opportunity to do that as well. I was told to go to a community college, even though I was a kid who was in the honors program. The counselor thought that for my life, and I'm the president, I'm a proud, really proud president of a community college. I cannot be any prouder or happier with the path that my life has taken, that I got to do a lot of stuff. Write my books, get these women out there to do what they needed to do, the women writers, and also get my students with me. I just got, just this week, 2 young persons, one was a young faculty at Ostos of mine, who came in and had not finished his degree. He finished his doctorate, he's now going for full professor, he wanted me to know. Another one, who was my student at Ostos, who now works for the Attorney General here, who wanted a letter from me and who got admitted into the doctoral program. So he's back. He finished his master's, he's back. There are so many ways that we can stay connected. I try very, very hard to stay connected. So, A, look at what they offer. Get to know what the teachers are doing. Teach the parents. And we used to do that at Ostos. We used to, when I was the provost, we used to use dollars from continuing ed because we brought in the early college, high school, and the faculty would say to me, Daisy, who are these kids? I said, they're ours. They're ours. If they make noise in the cafeteria, they're ours. We're going to take care of them because I want these boys off the street in the South Bronx, okay? So we used to teach the parents, we used to have classes that our continuing ed program would offer for free, to have the parents come and understand what does a homework look like for a 6th grade or a 7th grade. In most of the schools, if the parents understand, and I'd say that all over Connecticut, I'm forever speaking everywhere in Connecticut to Latino groups. And I said, even if abuelita dies, if the kid has to do a paper, everybody else goes, you stay and let the kid write the paper. Get a sense of what the academic calendar looks like. And when your child or your spouse or needs support so that they get the homework done. So it's a struggle, but there are a lot of bright, wonderful people here. If you are not doing it, ask yourself why not, and find yourself somebody or some school or some class that you are going to adopt. Hi.
We're going to have to probably
cut me off? All right.